So this time I thought we would look at the first of three books which are known in the Centre for Human Awakening at least as the lecture transcript books, because back in 2012, so 7 years ago now, I began some online lectures. I hit my 60th year. I had an inspiration to speak online live with groups who would listen to the talk, and then afterwards we would have a seminar period. And it was a lovely experience. It was a great experience. I think, I imagine we all look back on that time very fondly. I know I do. I think Robert does. And what would happen, or at least we eventually refined this over time, because I think lectures took place over about 3 years, perhaps every fortnight, give or take. And we refined a kind of format which I think was quite in place from the beginning, whereby Robert Meager would introduce the event, which took 2 hours, I think, and he would run a meditation or a centering contemplative exercise to bring people together and to establish a certain receptivity to the depth of ideas that were presented in their lectures. Then I would talk for, I don't know, I think the lectures were maybe an hour and 20 minutes, so they were a good chunk of time, and then afterwards we would have 30 minutes or something like this of seminar time questions and reflecting on the talk, or even bringing in other issues or related issues and so on. So these, I think I'm right, took place over a period of about 3 years, starting in 2012, and each of the series of lectures had different names, and once all this was complete, or very likely actually before it was even complete, Robert Meager and I started a series of dialogues on the YouTube channel here, discussing the different lectures, sometimes more than one dialogue per lecture, and that took a good chunk of time as well. They're interesting enough that we have begun rather slowly, because we're neither of us, I think, inclined towards the typing aspect of this, to record the transcripts of the dialogues on the lectures. Anyway, in the meantime, the transcripts of the actual lectures have been compiled into a series of 3 books. Last time, although you may not be watching this in order, we discussed the 3 books: Your Essential Self, Your Sacred Calling, Your Divine Opportunity. This is another series of 3 books by me, and they're transcripts of the lectures as they were given. And the first one is this book. It's called Dharma Sky. And what happens here is, if you order this, there's a PDF file. I'm afraid you have to go down the printers and get them to put this thing together. And having said that, we have now released these 3 transcripts of lectures books through Amazon or Barnes & Noble and various other outlets as ebooks. So you can get these straight to your device to read. You won't have to have hard copy. I like hard copy. You can make notes on it and, you know, hold it in your hand. I'm old-fashioned. So Dharma Sky is the book of the transcripts of the first 2 series of lectures. It amounts to 14 lectures altogether. The first series was called the Sashti Poorti lecture series. That was 8 lectures, followed by the Panchavati series, which was 6. Each of the books contains 14 lectures each. They amount to 42 lectures in total. And the names of the books in the trilogy are Dharma Sky, this one, Moksha Dawn, and Bodhi Ocean. Moksha Dharma Sky, Moksha Dawn, Bodhi Ocean, and all three of them are available as ebooks on Amazon and so on. Or you can order the PDFs from us and go make yourself a hard copy book. May I read you two different passages? The first passage is called Seeking is of the Ego, and it's on page 212 in the PDF or the hard copy. Ebook might be slightly different, but it's called Seeking is of the Ego. All seeking is of the ego. All of it reinforces and originates from an ego message that you are not enough exactly as you are. There is no shortcut. The surrendering of ego forces that allows you to embrace the spiritual practice of non-seeking is deeply unconscious. You will inevitably, with very few exceptions, have to work at it, paradoxically. Freedom follows constraint, like Picasso breaking the rules only after he had first learned how to paint. The question arises, if everything is of the ego, all seeking, then what replaces it? The answer, of course, is nothing replaces it. Your spiritual destiny is to be as you are, without restlessness or inner turbulence, without striving or dissatisfaction. This state is really not attractive to the life of ego, struggle, restless desire, personal drama, and superficial emotions. The alternative is unimaginable to us, to practice an unending devotion to existence, to remain still inside and blessed and conduct peace. Yet we intuit that this is somehow sane. Whenever have you felt most at home, at peace, fulfilled, at ease, real? For most, there is a symbol present here from the dark veil of nature. It manifests in our dreams and in our waking as a symbol of peace. It is the sunset, the ocean, the aftermath of love-making, or some such collective symbol denoting bliss. Now take this symbol and shatter it. As it is said in Zen, when you have polished the mirror, smash it. This smashing the mirror motif symbolizes the reality of non-seeking. It says, do not become attached to seeking, to not seeking, or to non-seeking. Now the other passage I'd like to read is a little longer, but it is important in the work of the centre, and it's important for people who are interested in sacred attention therapy, whether clients or students, teachers, or other kinds of practitioners. This is one of the first times I had summarized the first stage of awakening, which is part of the teachings of my approach to sacred attention therapy, which is in the Centre for Human Awakening. We give courses and train people to work through the first stage of awakening with individuals and in groups. So this is page 81 of the hard copy or the PDF, and the subsection is entitled First Stage Awakening. First stage awakening is what nearly everybody who has lifted an inner veil is presently involved with, and certainly it is where collective humanity is at this present time. The tragedy of not awakening to this first stage of psycho-spiritual human development is that the life you are leading is entirely governed, limited and adjusted to the circumstances and learned lessons of childhood, the entire life. By the time you were 21, most likely you were confused about life, because by this time you had such a backlog, such a baggage of unfinished business to shoulder and bear, that the challenges, fears, tests and encounters of your 20s were bound to be too much. Far, far too much. Most of us flounder in the 20s, but don't really pick up the pieces either, ever or not, before we enter our 40s or 50s at the earliest. The first 3 7-year cycles of life have specific formative functions. Through these experiences at specific times, we create character, personality, and an attitude to life which in most cases by far never changes. During the first 7 years of life, we experience the world for the first time. The intense flood of new experiences, sense information and stimulation provoke a highly complex process of meeting the world with engagement and withdrawal, nourishment and thriving, power dynamics and trust, the tentative beginnings of the formation of a sense of self, awareness of gender differences and models of being and doing. But most of us, most of all, we're engaged in a search for personal identity in our physical body. Identity is key in the first 7 years of life, as are the formative experiences of dependency, rejection, betrayal, and punishment through which we model our identity. The second 7 years are our initiation into socialization and the development of emotions and sexuality. We bring our identity forth into the arena of relationship dynamics and the establishment of boundaries. Within this milieu, we develop our emotional responses to others, to circumstances and events. We grow in our sense of having, possession, possessiveness, and our relationship to the world around us. The third 7-year cycle. In it we are involved in the creation of a personal ideology through developing our mental functioning, in among the tides of new energetic, physical, sexual, maturational, physical and psychological formation. We endeavour to fix our philosophy, a point of view, and make a stand. It is rather like trying to balance a mattress on a bottle of wine. We are bound to fall. And this analogy is apt in the second theme of the third 7-year cycle, which is developing the will. To go through and rise to the challenges of the first 3 7-year cycles of life brings you to a spiritual gate. The beginning of the prelude to the subtle energy conditions that enables and empowers the spiritual search. By the end of the trials and the processes of the first 21 years of life, a human being should be individuated, i.e., him or herself with a clear and strong sense of personal will, able to make decisions and serve others profoundly and care for the world from a deep feeling of spiritual morality. In a word, the human being who has learned the lessons of the first 3 7 years of life should be emotionally mature self-referring and adult. But in the present world culture, this is definitely not the case. Sacred wisdom, rites of passage, gentle, wise mentoring, a model of values, the example of true morality, even of consistently making sense in adult life, is missing. Once we may have said in the Western world, but now we have to say almost universally, as the global westernization of cultures proceeds unabated. One outcome of this chronic state of unresolved early life issues in present-day humanity is that we have devised a fallacious and inauthentic fantasy of sacred attention that responds to our unresolved childhood needs and dependency. Reality has not given us what we desire, and so, resourceful as ever, we have created an outward fantasy to meet our inner needs. Dharma Sky, talks on psychological and spiritual understanding and renewal for the modern era, by me, Richard Harvey, is available on the books link on the Center for Human Awakening website. The link is below. Or you can order it through any of the online outlets as an ebook. Dharma Sky is the first in the series of 3 books of lecture manuscripts of the talks. The other 2 books are Moksha Dawn and Bodhi Ocean. I hope you enjoy them. I hope they're of some use.